I'm going to pick 4 or 5 places within here. You see I've got them marked here, where the Hebrew Bible that we have, the Masoretic text, differs from the readings that are in the scrolls, and that's what I want to talk about. Now, here's the problem with that. Many people talk about the Hebrew Bible. I've got a Hebrew Bible right here. This is the standard scholarly edition of the Hebrew Bible. It's called the BHS, Biblia Hebraica Stuttgart, the German. That's where it was put out. It's put in Latin. It's referred to as the BHS. And you can see here on the page, if I put it really close at the bottom, that you've got all of these variant readings. So even though people talk about, I want to go by the Masoretic text, you have to realize even the Masoretic text, the traditional Hebrew text, like some of you use the Koran Bible, Koren, it's a standardized text that's been standardized by the rabbis hundreds of years ago, but there are variants. And many of you probably remember or know Bart Ehrman, who is the New Testament scholar, and he was trained at Princeton, and when he learned as a student that there are all these variants in the New Testament, it really disturbed him because he was raised as a very conservative Christian, and whatever the traditional Byzantine texts of the Greek New Testament said, he just felt it had to be perfect without any kind of mistakes or variants. And then when he began going to graduate school and finding out that there are literally hundreds of variants. Now, what you'll often hear is, well, the Masoretic text, it doesn't have any variants. You know how people count the letters and they do these Bible code things? But all you need is one variant and the whole Bible code is thrown off, right? Because all the letters would then shift even by one letter. And so I'm not too fond of the Bible code concept because I happen to know that the text you're searching is just one of several copies of the Masoretic text. The one that is used in the BHS is the Leningrad Codex. It's the oldest copy of the Hebrew Bible, Masoretic text, as we call it. The traditional text is maybe another way to refer to it. That's complete. There's the Aleppo Codex that's a little bit older, but part of it was destroyed by actually anti-Semites who raided the place and tried to burn the scroll. But fortunately, most of it did survive, and it's on display in Jerusalem. If you've been there and seen that, it's in the Shrine of the Book there in Jerusalem. So anyway, when you talk about the Hebrew Bible, here's what we've got. We've got the Masoretic text. But it does have variations. At the bottom of every page, you can see these other readings of other copies of it because copyists make mistakes and variations creep in over the centuries. We've also got what's called the Septuagint, LXX. You'll see it abbreviated. That's a translation of the Hebrew Bible that we think was made in the 2nd century BCE. And we do have manuscripts of the Septuagint, quite a few that have survived. And it doesn't always read the same as the Hebrew Bible either. So you got other versions. And then the Samaritan Pentateuch. Now that's only the 5 books of Moses, but the Samaritan Pentateuch does differ in places with the Masoretic text. So that would be 3 different versions of the Torah, at least, and of the Hebrew Bible in general. You would have 2 versions, the Masoretic text with its variants, as well as the Septuagint. And of course, the Septuagint would have variants also. And then you add the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is not complete because we don't have absolute copies of every single book of the Hebrew Bible. But it is, in fact, another tradition. And sometimes the readings of the Dead Sea Scrolls agree with the Septuagint. The first or second example we're going to have today, we're going to consider today, actually agrees with the Greek, not the Masoretic text. And so scholars have been busy now for 75 years doing all of these comparisons and trying to figure it out. This bothers some people. I hope it doesn't bother you who are listening. I don't want it to bother you. Tell my students I don't want it to bother them either, because what you don't want to do is trade one fundamentalism for another. I was raised in a fairly, conservative Christian tradition, and the tradition I came out of, the Campbellite or Churches of Christ, they would have said, by and large, although they're probably liberalized a little here and there over the years, but they would have said, the Bible is inspired and it's perfect and it has no mistakes, and they just don't like variations. And yet there are variations. When I first took Greek, I've got my Greek New Testament here. This is the Greek New Testament, and you can see it's very, very similar. It's got all of those variations at the bottom of the Greek text. So we shouldn't wish for something that we don't have. We have different versions of the Hebrew Bible, different versions of the New Testament.